Hi, in this video we're going to finish up the notes for 2.4 and we're going to talk about solving a quadratic inequality. So an inequality when we have an x squared term. So here are the directions we have in our notes. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to rewrite the inequality. We're going to add or subtract things so that we have a quadratic function, an x squared function on one side, and 0 on the other. The second step is going to be to find the zeros of our quadratic function, so you'll be doing that by factoring or the quadratic formula. And we're going to make a number line and put 0 above them, because that's going to be where it's 0. Okay, then what we'll do is we'll find a test value in each of the intervals, and I'll show you what I mean using the number line. We'll use our calculator to determine if the original function is positive or negative there. And then for the solution, we'll choose the intervals. We'll choose the ones with the negative if we have a less than inequality. And we'll choose the ones with a positive if we have a greater than inequality. Okay, so here's our first problem. It says x squared minus x minus 6 is greater than 0. Now, step 1 is already taken care of for us. We already have our f of x on one side and our 0 on the other. Now what we want to do is we want to find the zeros, and that we can actually factor this quadratic. So we can factor this as x minus 3 times x plus 2. Have that set equal to 0, so we'd set each of these equal to 0. Okay, so we'd get x equals 3 and x equals negative 2. So those are the two things. We're going to make a number line. Okay, and we're going to put negative 2 on our number line, and we're going to put 3 on our number line. And we're going to put zeros above them. Now, so we have the interval from negative infinity to negative 2, the interval from negative 2 to 3, and the interval from 3 to infinity. And we want to know which of those intervals is the inequality true. Which one are they greater than 0, meaning it's positive. So what we're going to do is we're going to pick what we call test values, and I put a little star. And so, for example, negative infinity to negative 2, we could pick anything in between there. So, for example, we could pick negative 3. Okay, between negative 2 and 3, the easiest number to pick there for our test value is 0. And then 3 to infinity, any number bigger than 3, we can choose, for example, 4. So those are just our test values. They're going to help us find the answer, but they won't be part of the answer. So what we're going to do now is we're going to pull up our calculator, turn it on. Okay, we'll go to our y equals. Okay, we're going to put our f of x in there. X squared minus x minus 6. Okay, now we'll go to our table and we'll put in our test value. So negative 3. Sorry, the table set isn't set up right here. Let me put this on ask. Okay. So now my first test value is negative 3. And all I care about is the answer a positive or a negative number. And here it's a positive, so I'm going to put a plus. Okay, next we're going to plug in 0. We see there it's a negative 6, so that's a negative. And then we're going to put in our last test value, 4. And that's positive. Okay, now since this is a greater than 0, that's what it means we want positive. So we're going to take this interval and this interval. So our solution here is from negative infinity up to negative 2 and from 3 to infinity. And that's the whole problem there. Okay, so let's move on to the next problem. So here we have x squared minus x minus 5 is less than or equal to x minus 2. So that first step, we want to subtract x from both sides. So that would give us x squared minus 2x minus 5 is less than or equal to negative 2. We want to add 2 to both sides. So that would give us x squared minus 2x minus 3 is less than or equal to 0. Okay, so here we want to find the zeros. So we're going to factor this. This factors as x minus 3 and x plus 1. So we'd set each of these factors equal to 0. So things we're going to put our zeros are 3 and -1. So we'll make our number line. We'll put -1 and +3. So test values, we can choose something like -2, 0, and 4. So we're going to test those values. So in our calculator, we need to change our y equals to our new function. We're going to put in the one after we've set n equal to 0. So we're going to put x squared minus 2x minus 3 in. Okay. We're going to go to the table. So our first test value was -2. Oops. So we have -2, 0, and 4. Oh. Okay, so we see it's positive, negative, positive. Now we look back at our original problem and it was a less than or equal to 0 right here. So that means we want the -1. So our interval is going to be from -1 to 3. Since it's less than or equal to, it'll be a square bracket. So that's our solution. Okay, we're going to do one more problem the exact same way. So here we have x squared minus 8 is greater than or equal to 6x. So we'll subtract 6x from both sides and we'll have x squared minus 6x minus 8 is greater than 0. Now, we'd want to factor this if we could. We'd want to find two numbers that multiply to -8 and add to -6, but that actually isn't possible. So here we have to use the quadratic formula. The quadratic formula, remember, x is equal to the opposite of b, so 6 plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4, a is 1, c, all over 2 times a, which is 1. This is going to be 6 plus or minus, it's going to be 36 plus 32, which is 68, all over 2. Now we want to simplify 68, which 68 is 4 times 17, so we can pull out a factor of 2. So this is equal to 6 plus or minus 2 square root of 17 all over 2. So then we can factor out a 2. We'd have 2 times 3 plus or minus the square root of 17 all over 2. And now those 2's will cancel out. So our two zeros are 3 plus the square root of 17 and 3 minus the square root of 17. Now, our final answers will have these square root of 17's in them, the 3 plus the square root of 17 and the 3 minus the square root of 17, but it's helpful to know kind of about what those numbers are, the decimals. So if in your calculator, if you put 3 plus the square root of 17, you'll see it's about 7.1. Okay, and if you do 3 minus the square root of 17, okay, we would have about negative 1.1. So we're not going to put these on the number line, we're going to put the actual values, the 3 plus the square root of 17 and the 3 minus the square root of 17. Okay, but this kind of helps us pick our test values. Because if we know if this is about negative 1.1, we can choose -2 as a test value. We can choose 0 in between here, and then we can choose something bigger than 7.1, so we can choose 8. Okay, so we're going to go to our calculator, put in our new function, x squared minus 6x minus 8. Okay, we'll go to our table. Okay, so what do we choose? We chose -2, 0, and 8. So I just need to go down and do 8. We see here we have positive, negative, positive. Okay, so this was a greater than problem, so we want the positives. So our solution is going to be from negative infinity to 3 minus the square root of 17, and from 3 plus the square root of 17 to infinity. Okay, so that's how we solve quadratic inequalities.